Hey guys, I am here for you today to do a little bit of social studies reading. Now, if you've been following along in the ReadWorks assignments, you'll have noticed that they're all social studies based. And that's kind of my way of getting our social studies in there for you and trying to follow the order that we would be following if we were in school reading from our book. So, we kind of just finished up the whole part of the revolution. We won. How do we continue as a country by ourselves after kicking out the English and becoming our own country and having our own president, creating the Constitution? You had a ReadWorks. Your first assignment was on the Constitution. And then your second one was on the three branches of government that are still true today. So now that we're kind of done with that in our book, we move on into new ways of traveling and kind of expanding and doing things better and easier. And we come to the part in our books on the Erie Canal. And I always kind of liked this chapter. It's kind of neat. It talks about transportation. And there's some good videos and stuff. So along with ReadWorks, reading passages, I'm actually going to start reading for you today from our actual book. Now, I know you guys don't have the books at home, so you can't follow along, but you can listen. And this is just some background information. There is no assignment to go with this. I am really just reading this to you so that you have the information because you still need it as a fourth grader. So I'm going to read you lesson 1 today, just the whole lesson. It's a few pages, as you know. It takes us a few days, but I'm just going to read through it quickly. And then we'll move on. So again, there's no assignment with this, but I do encourage you to watch the video and to listen so that you still have the information. Okay? All right. So this lesson was called New Ways to Travel. And we are in the beginning of the 1800s now. So you know how we usually do the timeline at the top? We're at the beginning of the 1800s. So still a while away in the past, but we're getting closer. All right, so this title up here is Fulton's Folly. And some of you, I think Russell, maybe I'm wrong, but I think Kurt might have done Robert Fulton. I forget. Oh, I'm trying to remember. When we did our biographies, someone might have done Robert Fulton. This is about him. He's in here. In the summer of 1807, inventor Robert Fulton was ready to test a new invention. Fulton called his invention the steamboat, since it was a boat that was a steam-powered engine. This boat was later named the Clermont. Many people thought the Clermont would never work. Some even called it Fulton's Folly. A folly is something foolish, but Fulton didn't care. Fulton announced that on August 17, 1807, he would sail his steamboat from New York City to Albany. People gathered to see if the boat would work. The boat's paddles began turning. The boat moved at about 4.5 miles an hour. That may not seem fast, but it was good for a large boat. Unlike other boats, the Clermont did not need wind to push it along. Fulton's boat arrived in Albany on August 19th. Then it started back towards New York City. People all along the river cheered the boat as it passed. Fulton's partner, Robert Livingston, I did him, remember? Wrote that smaller boats tried to keep up with the Clermont. He said, "Upwards of 20 boats filled with men and women came to meet us. They could not by all their efforts keep near us more than 2 minutes." Fulton's voyage proved that steamboats could work. He predicted that steamboats would change travel on rivers in the United States. He was right. Soon there were steamboats on the Mississippi River and other rivers. Steamboats could carry huge loads of goods between farms and cities. This helped the country grow. This helped them grow because, like the book just said, you're not just depending on horse and carriage and wagons to carry goods or walking them. You now, with this steam-powered engine, which we talk about a little bit later, comes the locomotive, the train, the steam-powered train, which is great for travel, not only for people, but for trading goods as well. Early roads. In the early 1800s, New Yorkers began building roads all over the state. Some of our state's earliest roads were turnpikes, or roads travelers paid to use. Now, you guys might know of the word turnpike. You might have heard it before. It's also known as a highway. The money to use a turnpike is called a toll. You know, when you have to kind of pause. Now we have Easy Pass, which can just go on the top of your windshield. You barely even have to slow down. But some of you might be familiar with a toll if you've ever traveled on a large highway for a long distance and you kind of have to slow down and drop some money in a bucket, or you get a ticket. That's a toll. The toll money was used to keep the road in good condition. That's still true today. Toll money is used to maintain the roads. New York's first turnpike was called the Albany and Schenectady Turnpike. This road from Albany to the town of Schenectady was completed in 1805. By 1821, there were almost 4,000 miles of turnpikes in New York. If you were driving a wagon with 2 horses, you had to pay about 12 cents for every 10 miles you traveled. You didn't have to pay tolls if you were going to church or to see a doctor. Most early roads were dirt paths cut through the forest. When it rained, dirt roads turned to mud. To keep wagon wheels from sinking into the mud, some dirt roads were covered with logs or wooden planks. Think about how bumpy it would be to ride in a wagon on a road made of logs. Some business people started stagecoach companies to carry passengers on New York's roads. Stagecoaches were horse-drawn wagons that traveled along regular routes. One traveler described a stagecoach journey in New York like this. Road very muddy, deep muddy holes now and then would give the stage a sudden jolt, which would send the passengers' heads against the roof. Nowadays, we would call this a taxi, or even really modern, an Uber. Plans for a canal. Many families moved to central and western New York to start farms in the early 1800s. Soon, these farmers were raising more food than their families needed. They wanted to send the extra food to cities to be sold. But wagons could only carry small loads. And if you have read about the problem, and you have read about the problems with those early roads, which I just did, people knew that it was easier and cheaper to ship goods by boat. But there were no waterways running all the way across New York, only the Main, the Hudson River, which was north and south. So there wasn't something that went all the way from the east to the west. There was the Mohawk River, but that didn't go all the way to western New York. This problem led to an idea. The idea was to build a canal all the way across the state. A canal is a waterway built by people. In 1808, the New York legislature voted to begin studying possible routes for a canal. Was it even possible to build such a long canal? You'll find out in the next lesson. I'll post this one tomorrow. See you later.